Hey, this is Jennifer, and this is this week's assignment 1, and my discussion of the questions relating to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 36 for 121. These questions, the first question is, how does Tennessee divides marital property? So one of the first things to look at is, the statute says, in making an equitable division of marital property, the court shall consider, it doesn't say it can consider, it says it shall consider all relevant factors, including these things. First, of course, the duration or the length of the marriage, the age of the parties, their physical conditions, their skills, their employability, how much they can earn, what they have, what their debts are, and what their financial needs are to be considered. Tangible or intangible contributions that one party or the other made toward the education of the other party to increase the other party's learning ability. Or their earning power, the ability of either party to acquire their future acquisitions, capital assets, what their earning ability is. What Social Security benefits will be available to the spouses when the time comes. The contributions of each party to the acquisition and preservation of the property, including whether they were the wage earner or the homemaker, as the statute refers to. So either are given the same weight. And at the same time, the court looks at the parties' contributions to any depreciation or dissipation of these assets as well. The value of any separate property, which we're going to look at here in a minute, but any separate property that either party has, what either party brought into the marriage or any estate they had at the time of the marriage. And then the economic circumstances of each party once the property division goes into effect. The tax consequences to each party as for the sale of any assets or any costs related to the assets. As far as any businesses that the parties had, to look at what effect, if say the parties have a business together, what effect selling off half interest in the business or dividing the business, what effect that would have, either on the marketability of the asset or the ongoing business. And then I just totally went blank. The court determines if to make sure there's no violation of the law. I'll get it, and in the splitting up a business or selling a business. And then the court may award the family home or the right to live in the home based on who has physical custody of the children. Now, the definition of marital property. Marital property, which is our question 2, marital property is all property, real, personal, tangible, intangible, what you can see, what you can't, whatever, stocks, bonds, whatever it is, acquired by either of the parties during the marriage and up to the final date of the divorce. And so anything that they acquired together, and we're going to look at separate property in a minute, but anything they acquired during their marriage. And any incomes or appreciation on any separate property if the other spouse were contributed anyway to that separate property. For instance, if you had a rental house and maybe that's your separate property, but your spouse collected the rents, or your spouse cleaned up between tenants, or painted between tenants or whatever, the spouse could have some claim to those incomes or appreciation. Any pension benefits for any employment or stock options or retirements for employment during the marriage. and any recovery from any personal injury lawsuit, Social Security, workers' compensation, for these specific things: wages lost during the marriage, reimbursement of medical bills incurred and paid with marital property, and property damage to any marital property. We're going to see something totally different in separate property. So I think that's interesting. And speaking of separate property, any and all personal property owned by the spouse before they were married, including pensions, IRAs, or whatever, is their separate property. And including that is any property that was the result of an exchange, which is a taxable way to instead of selling property, to exchange one farm for another and get the tax benefits for that. Income and appreciation for any property owned, that's separate property for the spouse. So if you had that rental house and your spouse never collected any rent, you never used any, you only used the rent to take care of the property, you kept it totally separate, there was no commingling, then that would be the income or appreciation would be separate property. Any property that you get as a gift or a bequest, under a will or by intestate succession, or just it's if your daddy wanted to buy you a car and it's a gift, that's your property. And then where I mentioned about lawsuits, any pain and suffering awards, victim of crime compensation awards, are separate property, as well as any future medical expenses or future lost wages are separate property. And then any property acquired after an order of legal separation, where there's already been a final disposition made for the legal separation, is separate property. And then finally, dissipation of assets is wasteful expenditures that say you've got $10,000 in a savings account and you're getting a divorce, so you decide you need an expensive purse, or great shoes, or to go on a trip, or go to the spa, or you go gambling, or whatever it is, and you waste those assets. That is dissipation of assets. So that's my presentation, and thank you for listening.